All right, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the places that you can find us on social. And I say this on almost every session, so bear with me, but I cannot be more excited than to have Classcraft. This is a little bit of like Eddie's old world techie coach and Eddie's new world doing customer marketing for Instructure, like kind of clashing today in this Classcraft Canvas partnership. And we're super excited to be joined today by Sean Young, who's the CEO and co-founder of Classcraft, as well as Trenton Goebel, who is our VP of K through 12 strategy here at Instructure. And just going to have a general conversation to start, but there are so many really cool things to talk about this partnership that is made in heaven. But to tell you a little bit about my background and why I absolutely love the tool is that I got to see it firsthand from another coach here in Indiana, another teacher that was using it with her class at some tech conferences that I went to when I was kind of first getting started into technology, and just being blown away at not only the engagement, but also just the strategy she was developing as kind of a newer teacher in elementary and using Classcraft to kind of change that process. So super excited to hear from Sean and Trenton today. Obviously, guys, welcome to the live stream. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, please throw those in the comment section below. We'll be glad to get to them as the session goes on. Sean, Trenton, welcome to the live stream.
Thanks, Eddie. It's good to be here. Sean, it's good to see you again. Before we kind of jump into Classcraft and get a sense of the work that you all have been doing, especially the work that you've been doing to integrate Classcraft into Canvas, which I'm with Eddie. I'm super excited about not only the work that you've done to integrate with Canvas, but the work that you're doing generally. I think that's super exciting. I'll take a second just to introduce myself, but then Sean, I'd love for you to kind of do a much longer introduction of yourself. And I have a few questions for you after that. Before we jump in, as Eddie said, I am the Vice President of K-12 Product Strategy here at Instructure. Prior to that, I was a founder of Mastery Connect, which is a formative assessment platform that was acquired by Instructure in 2019. And I bring that up because most of my career was spent as a classroom teacher, school principal, a district level administrator, and starting any sort of company or an ed tech company as a former educator, work and doing that in the space where I worked for 20 years. I think I always say I was an accidental entrepreneur. I wasn't actively seeking to go out and change profession. I just saw a need for teachers in my own building. And I bring that up, Sean, because that's kind of your experience too.
It absolutely is. And so I'm super excited to be talking about the work we're doing here. But you're right. It all came into focus as I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 10 years, taught physics, high school physics. People either, go yay when they hear that or they cringe. It depends. But I was really just very, very mindful of not wasting kids' time. I'd felt as a student that I'd been, so boring in school. And my mission as an educator was just to make school as meaningful as possible. And, and I wasn't even going to be an educator. I just kind of stumbled into it and studied physics and started substitute teaching and just fell in love with it. I did a master's in education while I was teaching, and it was interesting. I did my thesis on how to use digital platforms to create real life community. And so the idea was like, hey, if there are interactions happening outside of the classroom, can I codify those? Can I understand them? And can I have them impact how kids are relating to each other in real life in the classroom? So unfortunately, didn't use Canvas for that. We were using Moodle, but it was interesting because, obviously, this was 15 years ago. Now it seems so obvious, right, with smartphones and everything. But at that time, it was like, oh wow, actually, these digital interactions are super meaningful for kids, and they help codify how they understand and relate with each other. And so I was a bit more of an entrepreneur than you, maybe Trenton. I was also a freelance web developer, working mostly with my brother Devin, with whom I co-founded Classcraft, and we built websites and apps and all kinds of projects for clients. So I was like teacher by day, programmer by night, and so I had the idea for Classcraft because I love video games, and said I want to take these ideas from my thesis, apply them with the same motivational mechanics that make video games so engaging and motivating. And I just built it for myself, like literally had the idea, sat with some students, brainstormed what it could look like, and built it over the space of a weekend, this very early days prototype. And then I just tinkered with it for 3 years. It was very much like hey, the kids would be like, hey, you should add random events. That would be cool. I'm like, cool, guys. If you write 100 random events, I will code in that functionality. And so they did. And then, and it was just like this give and take, co-creating it with the kids. And then after like 3 years of that, I was like, this is really impactful. Like I'm seeing kids really change how they relate to the classroom, changing how they relate to physics class. You know what? I'm going to make just a little website, talk about it. Other people need to be thinking this way. And the day that website went online, 130,000 people came to the website. It was just started. Wow. A student put it on Reddit Gaming, and it just went all the way to the top of Reddit Gaming. And then like the rest is history. Like teachers all over the world saying like, how can I get this? And so that's kind of how the whole thing was born.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, that's incredible. Actually, I love the idea. I'm one that believes that, especially in the edtech space, that educators have a lot to offer, and the idea that students were helping to drive that process, I think says a lot about your DNA as a company, that it truly is founded inside of this environment that is the classroom, which is in so many ways, it's already a complicated space and it becomes really challenging. I think tech has a lot of opportunity to support the work that teachers do. And sometimes it can be a distraction. So maybe as we kind of jump in and talk about this partnership, because I think it's a really, really good partnership. Maybe talk about a little bit more around, how the product has evolved since then. What have you, is one of the things I found that was once I moved outside of what I already knew, my own school, my own district, and started working with others, that's when a lot of the evolution really came, because I started to see that my school wasn't like every other school, and it became, an opportunity to learn. Yeah,
I mean, and we were just talking about this earlier, right? Similar experience here. You as an educator, you're so ingrained, like especially as a teacher, you're just like, school life is your life, and that's education for you. It's very like contextualized to the building you're in, the district you're in, the ecosystem you're in, and the kind of the way Classcraft started was already like we had, in that initial group of waiting list of just from when that website went live, like we had teachers in Texas, teachers in California, teachers, all over the US, but also like teachers in Germany and teachers in, all over Canada and in Spain and Asia. And it was just very interesting because, there was universality, right? There was a universal need there that was like transcended all these different, context of education to say, hey, like, no, we need to connect with kids. We need to be able to build community. We need to motivate them. And so when we built when we started the company, we like scrapped my initial prototype because it was like absolutely custom built for me. And it was very clear that, I was not every teacher. And so the first thing we did was make sure that it was absolutely customizable. So a lot of the rule sets that I had built, we like put in at the time overly complex interfaces, but teachers could change them, right? They could change what the rules were. They could change everything and adapt it to their own specific context. And that's still prevalent today in Classcraft. Everything about it, you can change what it is, what the content is that's in it, what you give points for, what you're looking for in students. And that was really like for a long time, the core of what Classcraft was. It was a teacher-driven platform. And we, went back with these initial teachers, even from the heyday, and kept continuously getting feedback and adding features. And we added a lot of features in the first 3-4 years on the teacher side. And then we realized a lot of teachers wanted to go beyond the behavior part of Classcraft. And so we created an engine called Quests. And we said, okay, now we have a game, we have all this narrative, we have characters. How can we connect curriculum back into that? And so we created this choose your own adventure map-based quest platform that ties into the behavior module, and that teachers can create branching pathways, and we have a whole universe of stories attached to that. And now Classcraft has really evolved into being a platform that can roll out across a whole district, not just in a classroom, but saying, okay, what if we take this idea of positive school climate, PBIS mechanisms, social emotional learning, and make the platform a school-wide platform. All the teachers are using it, all the kids are using it. What would that look like? What systems do we need? And that's where we're at today. We have, really big implementations where the entire buildings are run with Classcraft, and it's really fascinating the impact that it has in terms of reducing referrals, reducing behavior incidents. We've schools that are reporting 95% reduction in fights, just by using Classcraft. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So as we jump into this, I want to make sure that people who are listening, if you have questions or comments, please add those to the comment section. We will address those at the end. There may be some that come up that I'm going to interrupt you, Sean, if we need to address maybe some in terms of make sure we're hitting it at the right time. And I have a few more questions for you, but I want to hold on to those as we start to jump in and kind of get a sense of what this integration looks like. And for our Canvas users, I really think it's important that we highlight the amount of work that you guys have done to make this integration easy, right? So if you're a Canvas user and you're also using Classcraft, I think you're going to be super excited about how easy this whole process is.
Yeah, the excitement is out there in the community for sure. We just got this message from Stephanie Davis on our YouTube page that said, I'm so excited this is happening. I teach high school. My kids, all grades, love Classcraft. Integration will save me a ton of time in creating more opportunity for my kids. So we're seeing lots of that through the community here on our comment section. So keep those coming, and we'll be sure to pop you in if you've got any questions. Thanks, Trenton, for bringing that up.
All right, Sean, let's get a better sense of what this looks like, the work that you guys have done.
Let's do it. I'm going to start just a bit with the pedagogy of what we're doing. I think, it's easy to look at Classcraft and just see the characters and see the game part of it. And, I think that there's a lot of robust pedagogical thought that went into building Classcraft, and that has been, validated by a lot of research. I don't know, it's kind of interesting to go back to the roots of that before going into here's the features and stuff. So, this is kind of setting the table of why we wanted to connect into Canvas. But we saw in the last year, student engagement has been a huge issue during the pandemic. We saw that we were really struggling to engage with kids, through virtual schooling. And although we're going back to the classroom in person, we're foreseeing that it's going to continue to be challenging. Kids are coming with trauma they've accrued over the year. They're all at different places in terms of learning loss. They've, in essence, been very free to use their time however they've wanted in the last year. And now we're going to be, bringing them back into, this more structured approach to education. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of challenges just from a motivational aspect. And so, a lot of the ways that we act as educators on motivation is extrinsic motivation. So rewarding kids for doing things. We had a little chat earlier, Trenton, you and I, just about, PBIS and motivational mechanisms and the way that we, push kids into behaving in specific ways. And a lot of the issues we see around those is that ultimately those extrinsic motivators The kids aren't doing those things because they want to. They're doing those things because they want the reward or they want to avoid the punishment. And so all of our work is about shifting that dynamic, shifting away from saying, hey, kids, like do this or else, or do this and you will get X, to let's design situations where kids are developing their own desire to do those things. And the best example of that is really gaming. And gaming is really fascinating because, video games so popular, but this slide really evidences the cultural impact here versus any other cultural medium. Games are dominating the cultural landscape for all ages, but this has been going on for a long time, all the way back to 2005. And so all kids that are K-12 today, their main cultural medium by far is gaming. But what's fascinating about gaming is just that it's really accessible, right? A lot of these games are free. You can easily pick it up. You can play alone. But the mechanics that exist in video games are the same that exist in sports. They're the same that exist in hobbies. They're the same that exists in any activity you can think of that we want to partake in for our own pleasure. And so one of my favorite examples here is golfing, because when you think about it, golfing is a pretty meaningless task. It's like, hey, take this ball, put it in that hole over there, and that's the task. And if I ask a student to do that, or a player, they'll say, okay, I'll do it. And, I'm not going to do that again. That was boring. And they say, wait, no, you got to use clubs. You have to, count your strokes. And you know what? You need to dress in a specific way. And in fact, all of these constraints that I'm putting on this arbitrary task is what's creating meaning for golfers to get up early on a Sunday and go hit balls. And so the analogy with schooling is like, for kids, schooling is, in a lot of ways meaningless for them. So how can we create structure and use the psychology that is built into these activities, into games and sports, to make them want to partake? And so this is really fascinating research called Self-Determination Theory. If you want to look it up, it's the dominant theory about why we do things for their own sake, why we're motivated. And the first one, there's three elements. The first one is competency. We see our own progress, super important. The second one is being in control. So why is a game like Minecraft that has no point, no ending, no scoring so motivating? It's because kids can make a lot of creative decisions. And the third one is social constructs and relatedness, being able to share that with other human beings. And so the whole proposal of Classcraft is to say, let's rethink education in a way that drives intrinsic motivation. And so that's our mission. The goal is to help students reach their full potential, teach them the skills they need to be better learners. And a lot of our history has been doing that in the physical classroom, right? Saying, hey, you're working really well here together. That's good collaboration, reinforcing that, giving kids points for that. Or saying, hey, you participated well today. Good job, Trenton. Here's a high five. But what we've seen more and more, and this was happening pre-pandemic, but was really accelerated with the pandemic, is that a lot of those behaviors have shifted into digital spaces. School isn't just a building anymore. It's a building and an ecosystem of digital tools, and the LMS is at the heart of that. And so we see Canvas in the role that it plays as an extension to the physical classroom, into the digital space. And that's why we're so excited about connecting into it, because it allows us to continue our mission outside of the boundaries of the physical classroom and connect, the things we traditionally work on are, things like PBIS, MTSS, tiered intervention, RTI, SEL, these types of, intervention-based approaches. It's saying, hey, you know what? We can do that now in the digital space through the integration with Canvas. And so to speak to that, the way Classcraft works is that kids have characters, they level them up, and they level them up throughout the year. And the way they level up is they gain points. They gain points for a variety of things, but ultimately what we're doing is telling them, hey, good job. You're doing the things you need to do to develop the skills you need. As they level up, they'll unlock new swag, new characters, new armors, new pets, all kinds of stuff. They also unlock real life powers, like being able to hand in work late, or skip the lunch line in middle school. That's a pretty popular one. And ultimately they're playing on a team. So we're taking this idea of like, hey, you're in school and you have your, here's what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. Most kids don't really know what they're supposed to do. They only know what they're not supposed to do. You ask any child, in the hallway, how are you supposed to behave here? And, what they'll tell you is what they're not allowed to do. They don't know what they're supposed to do. Yeah. So Classcraft really gives them that idea. And it's the same thing in Canvas. Like, what are you supposed to be doing in Canvas right now? Well, I don't know. And with Classcraft, we're able to say, hey, here are the things you should be doing in Canvas, and here's how you're going to get points for those. And we're going to encourage that.
What's interesting about that, Sean, is as we talk about Canvas and some of the, narrowing down the scope of what we think matters most when you're using an LMS, we have what we call our fundamental 5, which are kind of those 5 key elements. And the very first one is, answering the question of what am I supposed to do? Like at the very base level, that is, and we kind of approach it from the idea that not knowing that is a stress creator. Totally. Right? Like, we create stress in kids when there's ambiguity or they don't really know what they're supposed to do or when something is due. And so clarity around that is super key. So it's interesting that as you were talking about that, it fits so well within the framework of the way that we think about the value add of an LMS.
That's so fascinating, because when I was like, we interview students all the time about what they like about Classcraft. And one thing that's come up so many times is I feel safe in a classroom that has Classcraft. And when you dig in, it's for that specific reason, because I know what I'm supposed to do. And if I don't do it, that's my own fault. Like not only do I know what it is, I'm also in control. And I think that there's that feeling of safety needs to exist in digital spaces as well. So I'm really appreciative that you guys are thinking that way. I didn't know that.
Yep.
So anyways, the idea is saying, okay, you get points for what? So points for, these are examples of behaviors that people use in Classcraft all the time. Things like, hey, you're planning and setting a goal, being on time for video lessons, submitting work on time, working well with others, these types of things. And in Classcraft, they get points for that. These points are not a reward. It's super important to contextualize that. What we're saying is you are progressing towards mastery. You can't spend Classcraft experience points. You can't, transfer them. You can't lose them. They just accrue over time, just like in a lot of games. And so they represent your level. And what we're doing is using behavior as a way to develop skills in students. I can't see a skill. I don't know if a student is, has empathy or if they have good interpersonal skills. What I can see is their behavior. And so if I can see their behavior, catch it, give them a high five when it happens, in this case, you give them Classcraft points, then I'm able to assess it and develop it as it's going and develop their capacity, saying, hey, that's exactly the type of behavior I want to see. You're developing your skill. Good job. And what's new here with Canvas is the competencies of the 21st century child include digital things, and they include submitting work on time in a digital platform. There are behaviors happening in digital ecosystems, and what we're saying is let's capture them. And you know what? They're digital. Let's automate it and make it super simple for teachers. And so in the classroom, like Classcraft looks like this. It's just a teacher teaching the way she normally would. And as kids are doing their work, they're collaborating. She's giving them points. Now, what's awesome with the integration here is that a lot of that's going to be happening automatically in Canvas. And so just one last word on a couple things that exist in Classcraft, and we'll jump into what we did with you guys. This is that curriculum engine I was talking about. So being able to bring in assignments, create branching pathways, bring narrative into there. We have a whole SEL curriculum that's plug and play and built in, and that kids can work through at their own pace. And so you can, on the one hand, be developing, SEL skills. You could be reinforcing, the digital proficiency skills that we'll be seeing in Canvas. You can teach SEL strategies through direct instruction in the quests. And then at the end of that, you can get all the data because it's all happening digitally. The Classcraft ecosystem generates really robust behavioral analytics. So not just behavioral in the classroom, but now with Canvas, being able to understand how digital behaviors like handing in homework, your grades, how do those map back to your in-person behavior in the classroom for the student? So this is transformational, because just think about it for a second. We're at a point in time where we can map back academic engagement and proficiency in an LMS to real life behavior happening in the classroom. This is a gap that we've never been able to understand really since digital education has existed. And now all of a sudden the interoperability between the two systems is allowing for that. So we're really excited about the great insights we're going to be able to see here as educators about how kids are developing.
So I have a question for you. As you're talking through this, and as some folks like myself, who's not super hip and not really a gamer, like don't speak the gaming language, but I do have kids, and I do know that gaming is a huge part of their lives. My daughter is constantly reminding me that when I look at her, and especially when she was a little bit younger in high school, and I'd be like, "What are you doing on your computer?" And she was like, "I'm watching somebody play a video game." Mm-hmm. And I would be like, I don't understand that. And she would say, "Dad, you watch sports, like, come on." But to somebody who, when they hear, the gamification piece, that might think, that's just foreign to me. That's just not something that's really in my wheelhouse. What do you tell folks like that? Because in maybe some teachers' mind, they hear that and they think that sounds complicated or hard, or maybe it's just not for me.
I appreciate that question, and it's a tough question, because you're right. We're definitely, our approach has been meet kids where they're at, right? And for some educators, that's these are different generations. It's not always easy to do that. But there's two things. The first one is we are releasing a really big revamp of Classcraft this summer. And we have spent the last year researching and working with teachers in the classroom, developing prototypes and testing them out over weeks with in the classroom. Imagine being able to do that in the pandemic. It was a real Herculean effort on the side of our of our product team. But Classcraft starting this summer is going to start off really light on the game elements. And as teachers get more familiar, all they need to do is add kids and give them points. That's it. They don't even need their emails, just add a list of students, start giving them points. And that's really great, because starting there, Canvas can start giving them points immediately as well without them having to do anything. And so the kids start getting points. And as teachers get comfortable with it, we'll say, "Hey, you've given points 100 times. You're ready to move on to unlocking this new feature." Or maybe now you're ready to unlock students' avatars, like their characters. And as they get more and more familiar with it, we're going to be educating them and building proficiency with the platform. And so, we're not expecting teachers to know all about games or all of that. What we are expecting them to do is be able to grow with the platform, and the platform is going to help them develop that proficiency. Because ultimately, what we want is for teachers to move from a position of motivating kids from extrinsic means to intrinsic means. And that's a shift in itself. And so the platform is designed to help them get to that place. The other part is the kids know the lingo and they love educating teachers. And so we have a lot of teachers that say I didn't understand what all these points were at the beginning, but the kids know, and they would, they're so excited that we're understanding and taking interest in their reality and their culture that they, raise their hand and jump up with glee to help the teacher. And that's a really empowering role for students, and really changes the classroom dynamics just in and of itself.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you said it really fast, but I think it's important to reiterate too that as you're thinking about this, and as it gets implemented in the classroom, it really isn't just about assigning points and creating these extrinsic rewards. It is really about supporting your SEL model, your your RTI, your MTSS, your PBIS, whatever model that you're looking to really support utilizing Classcraft, it really is driving to that building intrinsic motivation. In a lot of ways, gaming does that for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about what a game is, it's a designed experience that is designed to A, be fun and want you to partake, but B, get you to behave in a specific way. If I look at any game, and this includes board game like Monopoly, like you look at a Monopoly board, is your reflex to say, "Oh, I'll turn around in circles on this, cardboard thing." Probably you wouldn't think to do that if you didn't know the rules. But putting the rules in place gets you to behave in a very specific way within the constraints of the game. And what's fascinating is that when we think about PBIS, SEL, all these different behavioral models that we're all working really hard to implement, where the opportunity of a game is to like make the experience smaller and more controlled and more fun as a result. And in doing that, generate buy-in from students around their own development. Like kids like, oh, I leveled up, like I unlocked a new skin in Fortnite. Do they really care about the skin in Fortnite, or do they care about their own progress and reaching the next level and getting the feedback that they're becoming more and more proficient at this experience? Yeah. And if we could just, take out the word Fortnite and put in school, and we're in a good place.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. The adaptability of being able to just take an existing, PBIS matrix, put those behaviors in Classcraft and be up and going like in, a few clicks is really powerful in terms of implementation.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's talk about what we're doing here. So enter Canvas into this discussion. We picked Canvas, because you guys are so great to work with. I have to admit it. We've been really impressed just by how fun and easy and collaborative the experience has been. But we also had a lot of educators saying like, "Can you please integrate with Canvas? Please, 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 please." So we listened to the community. We saw anyways that with the pandemic, there was more and more of a need for this. And so we went ahead and designed a prototype, and then we implemented it with a test district and ironed out some kinks, and then really built the real deal into Canvas. And so this is the first step of a furthering this integration, where this is definitely like version 1.0. But really what we want to do is motivate kids for, doing the things they should do in Canvas. Back to your point, like not only making it clear what they should do in Canvas, but also motivating them to do it. The second thing that we wanted to do is make sure this was as easy as possible for teachers. You're going to see there is no work involved. You just connect your account. Once the district approves the connection, you just connect your account as a teacher and you're good to go. The points start flowing. And so it's so easy to set up. Like it's kind of hard to believe how easy it is. It's literally one click. When we started our prototyping, we weren't necessarily looking at, making it LTI compliant, but the work you guys have done over at Canvas has really, is very opinionated about LTI, and it pushed us to go towards this compliant approach that is the right way to do it, I think, ultimately. So we really made sure that we fit into the compliance model within Canvas. And the team did really good work finding all the design language for Canvas and bringing Classcraft into Canvas and making it look and feel like Canvas. And so the setup, once the district approves the connection, there's a new Classcraft experience points section that appears in teachers' accounts. And what they can do right now is it's all about academic engagement. So we wanted to make sure that students were being reinforced, taught, and rewarded for academic engagement. So the first one was handing in homework on time. The second thing, as we were testing with the district, they said, you know what, like, I'm cool to give them Classcraft points if they hand it in, period. On time is great, but these days, if they just hand it in, I'll be happy. So we also have a late submission reward, which is a little less. And then the capacity to automatically take the performance in your work and transfer that into Classcraft experience points. Not the other way around. Your Classcraft points don't give you grades, but your grades contribute to the overall progress of your avatar. And so literally you just flip that green switch and all your assignments will start giving points into Classcraft.
Let me ask a question quick. And this is both Alec and Jonathan have asked similar questions. And the questions are, does this have to be done at a district level, or can an individual teacher, who's using Canvas connect to Classcraft?
So unfortunately, no, for security and privacy reasons. Like the Canvas owner is usually the school or the district, and the linking and like the interoperability switch needs to happen at the Canvas owner level. So you can't just turn it on as a teacher unless Classcraft has been added as an app within the Canvas installation.
And Alec also brought up that, he's like, my district won't pay for this, but I certainly want to pay for it myself and want to have that integration. So Alec, what we need to do is we need to get Sean talking to your district.
That's right.
So they're getting that done.
I hear teachers say, my district won't pay for this. And, you'd be surprised how interested districts are in paying for this. To me, that speaks more, and I can really relate to this, the powerlessness that we have as teachers to influence a district and school purchasing. It's pretty wild. But to Trenton's point, just connect us to them and we'll do the hard work of convincing them. But it's true. Like and that's why we have a free version of Classcraft, honestly, is because one of my biggest frustrations as a teacher was finding out about really cool stuff. And then like, Trenton, you remember clickers? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, of course I remember clickers.
And so I found out about those when I was a teacher, and I'm like, this is so awesome. I can do like quiz shows, and like the kids will get really engaged, and I'll be able to do all kinds of cool stuff. And so I looked them up online, and this was before, everybody had smartphones and stuff. And it was $3,000 to just get a case of clickers for 30 students. And, and then of course it was like, forget it. But that frustration of just like, oh my God, like this is so cool. It would really improve my practice. How do I convince whoever? I don't even know who I have to convince to be able to pay for this. Like, too bad, I'll just either pay out of pocket, which is terrible, or, hopefully there's a free version. And so that's why we have the free version. It's just to be able to empower teachers to level up their practice, based on their own, control that process, because otherwise it could be really painful.
Yeah. I worked with a teacher who got a grant and had clickers. And the district wouldn't buy them. And so I felt like it was just rough watching somebody else in the building have access to the clickers, and she wouldn't share.
She wouldn't share. You have your own horror story about them.
Yeah. So no, I totally get it. And what's funny is I'm old. I remember going to conferences and we would get the 3x5 floppy disks of demos of, I remember I got like a program called Tesselmania that I just loved way back when, and Hyper Studio that I used for years as kind of a free version, but was always kind of frustrated. And so I think your point is a good one. And Alec, the goal really is, I hope that what this can create, especially with the integration of Canvas, is that creates new conversations maybe in your district around rationale for being able to bring Classcraft into your district. Because I think it really is one of those tools that when people see the power of the tool, the way that it does integrate with Canvas, there's hopefully that just creates that conversation where maybe that can get done.
Well, we've been seeing it already. We had a school leader reach out just yesterday saying, "Hey, I saw you're now connected to Canvas. Like, we're now interested."
Yeah.
And I think that there's when you invest in an LMS as a school or a district, and you want to see usage and you want to see students using it to its full potential, Classcraft is really a good solution for that. So it really helps level up and power up what Canvas is already doing. So these are the global settings. You just flip the switch. Of course, teachers need more fine-grained settings, so they're able to turn these on or off for different modules, different assignments. So you can say, hey, this is formative, I don't want to give points for it, or this is summative, or I just don't feel like it this time. So it's pretty easy to turn these on and off on a per module basis. And really what this allows us to do is really connect the dots with academic engagement. There's other places that we're going to be able to build onto, things like, because when you think about what are the behaviors you want to see in students in a platform like Canvas. So of course, number one is, do your work, hand it in. Then after that, there's like discuss with other students, go complete quizzes, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of different things that are possible in Canvas. And as we have a stronger partnership and we work more closely with your team, Trenton, we'll be able to, unlock more of those, in technical jargon, endpoints where we're able to say, okay, this thing happened, therefore convert that into Classcraft points. But this is really the starting point of what is going to be hopefully an even more robust ecosystem of these types of features within Canvas. So pretty simple. You just flip the switch, the points start flowing. The kids see them, they get points, and their avatar levels up. You don't have to do anything as a teacher. There's a couple things here just as I turn off these slides. The first one is there's a lot of challenges that are coming for us from a motivational, mental health, and equity standpoint that is Classcraft's mission. We're very excited to be able to work with Canvas to address those, because we're going to be seeing hybrid models. We're going to be seeing choice virtual. We're going to be seeing, even in full-blown back to normal, we're going to be seeing a lot of blended learning, and the capacity to connect those digital experiences to SEL, to PBIS, to MTSS, through a motivation-first approach like Classcraft is going to be really transformational for these kids. So we're really excited about this. In fact, we're so excited, Trenton, that we have a little present for you.
Nice.
We heard when we were working with your team that everybody wanted Classcraft avatars. So we worked with our illustration team and created the first official Canvas avatar, and it's you.
Look at that thing. Oh my goodness.
That is so funny. I need to screenshot that.
We'll send you the poster.
Oh my, screenshotted for you, Trenton. My goodness. What in the world?
That's how I see myself, Eddie. What are you talking about?
I don't know, man. I am in love with this image. I am in love with it.
That is funny.
Your team worked in the background to try to find photos of you, and we had our artists draw up a rendering. This is also as a result the first time that I'm getting an avatar as well, so
that is so great. Well, that's funny. That's back when I had a tiny bit of hair,
Hey, we are my beard is less white on here there too. It's Devin calls it the 25% beautiful filter. For anybody we make an avatar for, we make them look 25% better.
That made my day. That is super cool. I love that. I definitely want to keep that. I'm curious to see how my daughter responds when I share that with her.
Yeah, we'll send it over later. I mean, this is high quality. You could make a poster out of it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there was a question earlier that was kind of a take on the previous questions around, can I do this as an individual? If a district is using Canvas and there's an individual teacher who wants to be able to connect, can the district make that available for the individual teacher, or does the district need to have a site license for all of the teachers?
We need a site license. Again, it's unfortunately related back to privacy and security issues. We like the teacher license, we don't have any way in the system of knowing that they have we really care about student privacy and student data security here. It's like we're very aware that we're custodians of behavioral data about kids, and that data ultimately is pretty sensitive, right? Like you're able to know a lot about a child, and so we for being able to connect these two systems together, we just really need to be able to jump through that hoop and be sure that the teacher is actually within that district, and that can only happen if we have a site license.
One of the questions that came up is requests, actually, around can we get quests integrated with Canvas as well?
We would definitely love to do that. We just need to figure out with the product team at Instructure what the right way to do that is. There's different pieces of how that would integrate. But Victoria, please write us. We're right now, we have a person on staff who her job is to understand these types of requests. Integrating quests into Canvas seems like a simple thing, but when you dig in, different teachers want different things happening. Like, should the quest live in Canvas, or should the Canvas content live in Classcraft quests, et cetera? So that's definitely something that we want to work on. But that may not be possible currently without more tight collaboration with Canvas. We explored it already, so we have some ideas.
So another question that came up earlier, and I'm going to say this, as somebody who's been in education for 30 years. Back in my day, we used to have like token economies where we would actually hand out like Monopoly type money to kids. How is this different than, say, just like a token economy?
Oh man, it's so different. There's a lot that is different, but ultimately it all comes back to the motivational theory at play here. First and foremost, think about money versus points in Tetris. I know you're not a big gamer. What was that game you played? Joust?
Joust.
Yeah. So in Joust, you had a score, right?
Yep.
Think about your points in Joust. And in Joust, the points, you can't spend them, you can't transfer them, you can't do anything with those points, right? And yet, when you're playing Joust, what you're trying to do is beat your own high score, right? Like that's literally the point. And so, why those seem the same as a currency, right? Like they are points. You're getting those points for doing the right thing in the game. And yet those are way more motivating than money. Like you probably spent lots of quarters and lots of hours playing Joust, and the reason you did that was because you wanted to. So why are these points that are absolutely meaningless, ultimately, like you can't do anything with them, more motivating to you than, say, money? And the reason is because it ties back to your feelings of competency. Token economies are also pretty low on the control spectrum. Like you can't do anything other than go spend it. In Classcraft, you're able to, heal your teammates, change what your character looks like, progress at your own pace, like all of these things that are core to the experience of being in a game. And then it's also a team-based system. Like a lot of these token economies are really about like, hey, Trenton, you behaved well, here is for you. And like, I don't care about anything, all the other context for the other students around, like it's you and your behavior. And in Classcraft, we're really making it into a team dynamic, which really like creates peer-based support groups of students working to help each other, et cetera. And so the motivation is really different. But then also the data is transformational, right? It's a digital system, so you're able to understand how kids are behaving. You're able to see if a child is not getting points and build tier 2, tier 3 interventions directly into the platform to help these kids. And then there's a consistency piece. Like everybody in the school is getting points for the same things, which is in theory what's happening in token economies, but in practice, not what's happening.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there that is very different. And I'm only scratching the surface. Like we could have a 1 hour conversation just about that.
So one of the comments, and I don't know if you can pull this up, Eddie, that Lauren had a while back was talking about the fact that they not that one, the one at 11:56 or 10:56, 10:56. I think this speaks exactly to what you were just talking about in terms of student motivation. The fact that the students aren't even in the class anymore, and yet they're still kind of coming back to their characters. They've made that investment.
It's fascinating. Lauren, I love this comment because I saw that with my own students. And I mean, I was teaching seniors. They were in college and they were still coming in to Classcraft like a year later and like training their pets and changing their characters out. People usually don't believe that story. But here again, we have this, like, think about what this comment seems pretty simple, right? Like, oh, at face value, like, oh, kids really care about it. But like, think about how transformational that is. There's nothing happening in Classcraft 2 years later, right? They're not getting any points from the teacher or anything. They're not even with that teacher anymore, and they're still logging in to like deck out their character, and they're still thinking about like, oh, my cool avatar. And the reason they're doing that is because what we succeed in doing with Classcraft is back to that point, interiorizing the motivation so strongly that even when the activity stops, aka the class, you're still motivated to keep going and go do these things. It's super fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm going to hit on one other thing. I don't know if Alec is still on. Alec had mentioned that, wanted to use this on his own and, has approached his district and not had success getting them. One thing I will say, it is hard when you're an individual teacher. Sean and I have both been in that situation where it's tough to try to move the needle. People, when you work, and I've worked in a district environment too, where you're trying to balance out what is in the best interest of the entire district versus how we get individual teachers what they need. What I would say is, don't underestimate the importance of allowing Sean and his team, the opportunity to come and talk to folks in your district. All they're doing is validating the fact that there are teachers in the district who are currently using Classcraft. You probably have access, even, if Alec's probably not alone in his district as far as being a user of Classcraft. And so I don't know if there's a way for folks to kind of reach out to you to, maybe help you reach out to their district, but don't think that just because, as an individual, you haven't been able to move the needle. Sean and his team may be able to kind of step in and help create that value proposition for you.
Absolutely. You could write us at pbis@classcraft.com or schools@classcraft.com. And our team is very well trained on, the pedagogical elements here. I think if you're in a district that is using Canvas, the integration is actually a super strong selling point. Yeah. Because they've already made an investment into this infrastructure piece. And what we're saying is we're connecting into the existing infrastructure. And for a lot of, district tech decision makers, that's a huge selling point on its own. And so, don't underestimate that either. the other piece is that like we're lucky because we're bridging two. There's the behavior people that really like Classcraft, and then the tech people will like Classcraft, and we can actually create multiple stakeholder groups within the district that are advocating for it in a way that is really, really hard to do if you're a teacher at a site. So I would echo Trenton's comment here. Like, we can definitely help with that.
Yeah.
Schools at classcraft.com, Alec.
Yeah, schools at classcraft.com. This has been amazing. I'm excited. I don't know if I'm doubly excited now, given the background there that I think just captures the essence of the whole thing. I'm also saying that Sean and I have talked quite a bit in the past. We started talking actually before the integration, and just for me, talking about how excited I was that they were interested in wanting to integrate with Canvas. It's something that I'm really passionate about, things that validate the work that students are doing, especially in those key areas where I think teachers struggle around SEL and PBIS and RTI. How do we do this in a way that really engages students, validates the work that students are doing, and not just have it be, like you said, kind of this random experience, but actually rewards the work that students are doing. And this integration, I think you guys have done a phenomenal job using the style sheets that make that look and feel like it's not just an add-on, but it's part of the Canvas experience. And I think you guys have done an amazing job. So I commend you for that. I'm excited. I'm excited to see as it continues to evolve. And I'm really grateful that folks have kind of tuned in and been a part of the conversations today.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. I mean, our team worked really hard to make this happen. So big shout out to all of them, but also big shout out to your team. Trenton. This is from our sales leader here, Michelle. So it doesn't need to be district; it could be school level. So just need to it needs to be a higher level than the teacher license. Good point there, Michelle. But I was about to say, your team has been really great too, Trenton. So, I'm excited about what we can bring to the table here for educators all over the country. But I'm also, excited about being able to work with you guys. I think that your head is looking at this in the right direction, and you care about kids just as much as we do, and that shows. So it's really exciting to be able to join forces like this.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. I think it probably shows when two former educators are now working for the company. So, all right, Trenton. Right, Trenton.
Yep.
We do believe what we're doing is making a difference and for the betterment of all, which is why I've loved Classcraft so much, because the story is very similar. And I think I've left this picture up as long as I could, Trenton, so that everyone can see the Trenton goodness.
Everybody can screenshot this.
I may or may not have already put it off on the company Slack. Like it's getting views, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
But we really appreciate both of you for obviously taking the time, being a part of the live stream, sharing all of the Classcraft goodness. And if you have questions, schools@classcraft.com. I put everything in the comments below if you're on one of our official channels. If you're watching on, Canvas for secondary or Canvas for elementary, those comments don't allow us to go through on the platform we use. So I tried to put it up there as a banner as well. But lots of links out there, lots of blogs and press releases. Check all of our social channels for those. As always, everyone, keep learning. And thank you, Classcraft, for bringing this amazing product to integrate with Canvas.